Hello, and welcome to the Creative Mojo podcast, episode number 35. I am Joanne, and I am coming to you as always from my home in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And a big warm welcome to all my returning viewers, and a big hello and welcome to any new viewers who might be checking me out for the first time. I hope that you will enjoy this podcast and might consider coming back and watching again if you like what you see. You can subscribe to me in the link down below here on YouTube, and you can come and join our Ravelry podcast group. Oh. And it's called Creative Mojo. You can find it by searching under Creative Mojo Podcast in the Groups tab on Ravelry. And that's where I post my show notes there. And that's where I host some knit-alongs and stuff like that. So it's worth your time if you're on Ravelry to come and check us out and join that group as well. And introduce yourself in the introduction threads. And I love to get a little bit of an idea of my viewers and all that good stuff. So today is Sunday, July 2nd. Yesterday was Canada Day, so happy Canada Day to all my Canadian viewers. And coming up is July 4th in the United States, so happy July 4th weekend as well. And I hope you're all having a really lovely summer. I've been enjoying the beginning of a sort of slower time for me with work. Summer is always a slower and easier time. I work in professional theater, and our main season of shows and things like that happen in the fall and went through the winter and then into the spring. And so summer is our downtime that there's not as many theater shows produced in the city in the summer. And so I generally have a bit slower of a schedule. I am still working, but in an office capacity, administrative capacity with the company I now work for. So my schedule is a little bit more relaxed. I'm going to have a little bit of time off here and there, and I'm working more of a sort of Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So I've had a lovely, I'm in the middle of, actually I should say, a lovely long weekend. First long weekend I've had in months and months and months. So it's been great. I've been able to do some crafting and stuff, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. I have a little bit of knitting to show you, and I've been predominantly kind of monogamous on my knitting, which is unusual for me, but so I don't have quite as much to show you in the way of knitting as I do sometimes on other episodes, but I have a little bit of sewing to show you as well, so that's kind of exciting. In terms of other things that have been happening around here, as I said, it's been a sort of slow and lazy time a little bit. It's a busier time for my husband. He's a professional musician, and he plays a lot of summer music festivals and things like that, so summer ramps up a bit for him. So I've been home more and he's been out more. But we've also had been able to enjoy some time together, which is great. Just last week and a half ago, I guess maybe now, he was out playing. I'm trying to remember when this was now. This was just after I recorded last, actually. I think I recorded last on June 18th or June 19th, something like that. And a couple days after that, I was actually at work until a bit late. I didn't get home till about 8:30, and my husband was out at a regular Tuesday night gig that he has. When he's home in town here, he plays every Tuesday night at a bar here called Mikey's Juke Joint. And I got home about 8:30, and there was I noticed on my phone on the way home on the bus that there was a wind warning. And we do get a lot of wind here on the prairies, just sort of normally. It's we get regular breeze, which is often nice, but then we do get higher winds with storms and stuff. And in the summer, especially the last couple of years, I think we can thank climate change for this. We've been getting a lot more sort of weather where in the last couple of years in the summer, especially this time of year, late June through July, we get hot temperatures in the day that often turn into thunderstorms in the afternoon, and we can get lightning and thunderstorms and hailstorms and stuff like that if it's been particularly hot in the earlier part of the day. And this was a weather warning of a sort of cold front coming from the north and causing some different temperatures, and particularly some really, really high winds. to the around the city, not necessarily here in Calgary, but in the surrounding sort of areas. There also are tornadoes sometimes and stuff. So I think this was almost tornado weather, but it was 100-kilometer-an-hour wind gusts, which is pretty intense. And it was just picking up as I got home. I was coming down the street and I could feel the wind, and there was dust blowing and stuff like that. And I got in the house, and you may have seen this if you follow me on Instagram, but I got in the house and I was just sort of sitting down and relaxing after getting home from work, and I heard this funny noise in the yard, and I couldn't tell what it was at first. I thought maybe something had blown over on the deck, so I went out and looked, and everything seemed okay, and I came back in the house and I heard the noise again, and went back out onto the deck again and realized that a tree in our yard had a big old, I think it's a Manitoba maple, I think is what it was. Big old tree had cracked and was slowly falling over onto, luckily, mostly kind of into the space between the edge of our property and the neighbor's fence. Mostly the tree didn't mostly do any damage because it fell in that direction, sort of right along the fence line. But it did, some of the branches did catch on the back of the house. The neighbors have a small balcony off of one of their upstairs rooms, and it caught in the railings of the balcony, and it ripped both the railings off this balcony on two sides. And yeah, it was kind of spectacular. It just cracked in half and fell right over, and it was kind of scary and freaked me out. And I was sort of standing there looking at it, wondering what to do. It came to rest. It didn't go all the way down to the ground. It came to rest against the fence and another tree that's sort of behind it, and was sort of caught up in that tree as well. And I was sort of standing there looking at it and kind of going, oh, that's kind of bad. And the neighbors came out because they'd heard it, and they'd heard the railings being ripped off their house. And the three of us stood there and looked at it. And so I made a couple phone calls, and they made a couple phone calls, and the fire department came out and checked it out because we weren't sure if it was maybe resting on some power lines. Turned out that it was a cable line into their house, not power lines, which was good, and it wasn't really resting on that. So they had it all checked out by the city, by the fire department, and the fire department eventually they went up on their deck and pulled the railings all the way down and stuff, and then decided that the tree was probably not going to go anywhere overnight, and they just put up a whole bunch of yellow caution tape in our backyard, which I'm not sure what that was supposed to do, but they strung a bunch of yellow caution tape all around, and then they left. And in the morning we had some people come and take the tree down, and so then we had 2 days of tree being chopped down and chopped up and removed from our yard, and so that was kind of spectacular. And I'm a little scared of it. We live in one of the older neighborhoods in our city. It's right around a lot of where the first developments in the city were in the 1800s. And this is an older neighborhood. There are a lot of big old trees. And now I kind of have a general tree phobia about the other trees that are surrounding our house. And every time there's a bit of wind, I kind of have to school myself against the paranoid anxiety that I have that other trees are going to come crashing down on our house and, kill us while we sleep. I don't think that's actually going to happen rationally, but I kind of worry about it because that's the way my brain works. I have noticed that there are there are trees being taken down closer to houses in a lot of areas in the city now. And Red Deer, which is a smaller city about an hour to the north of us, and sort of halfway between Calgary and Edmonton, which is about 3 hours north of us, got hit really bad. They were in the center of that windstorm, and they had all kinds of trees down and power out and street lights blown over and and buildings that lost their roofs and all kinds of frightening, scary things. So I'm actually glad it wasn't worse here, but I'm hoping that we're not going to get a lot more of those intense windstorms. Excuse me. Sorry, I have seemed to have developed seasonal allergies this year for the first time ever. I've never really had allergies, and I was sort of wondering if I was imagining that, but I have talked to a lot of friends who also have never really had allergies before, and everybody seems to be having allergy symptoms this year. I guess our pollen count is really, really high. So I am feeling kind of croaky and stuffed up, so you'll have to excuse me for that. But anyway, I've blathered on kind of long enough in terms of my what's been happening here, and I should just jump in and talk a little bit about knitting. So the project that I have been working on, as I said, I've been pretty monogamous since I last podcasted about 2 weeks ago, and the project that I have been working on the most is my So Faded sweater, which is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. You may have seen, lots of people are making it, so you may have seen it on Ravelry. I cast this on about 3 weeks ago now, 3.5 weeks ago, and I've been knitting on it with most of my knitting time, and I'm really, really enjoying it. If you don't know the pattern at all, which it involves a fade technique, which means you use a bunch of single skeins. It's a fingering weight sweater, and you transition from one single skein to another in different colors. So I'm knitting mine all out of Skein Top Draw Sock, which is a fingering weight yarn from Skein Studios out of Australia, one of my very favorite dyers, and I have amassed a lot of single skeins of hers over the years. For several years I was in her sock club, which was a skein that came in the mail every month that she specially dyed just for that club. Sadly, she's actually discontinued the club now, which is probably good for my ever-accumulating stash to drop down a bit. But I'm going to really miss getting these skeins in the mail every month. I just got the last one this week, and I was a little sad to think that that was the end of that club. But I picked out 5 skeins that all had some common colors. I'll talk about that as I show this to you. And I'm about halfway through the 4th color in it, so I've made really good progress. So as I pull my hair off of it, I will show you. So I've knit the neckband on this. You add the neckband on later, but I actually went back and added that on before I actually finished the body of the sweater. But so, and the first color I used here that you could see goes all the way to about here. Is, oh my gosh, what's this color called now? Can't believe I can't remember it. I've got a bunch of tags in here. It is called Cheshire Cat, sorry. So Cheshire Cat, and the colors that I sort of riffed on in this sweater were the sort of natural cream, whitey cream base, and the pinks are the kind of colors that can go consistently. So the first color is fairly strong pinks, a little bit of yellow and orange, and black and gray, as you can see there. And then I transitioned into the second color, which starts about here, and that second color is called OMG, which is sort of very, very similar to the first color, but paler, more white, less pink, and still the grays and stuff in it. The third color, and this is going to be really hard to show, but the third color starts here, and it is called Pumpkin Spice Candy, and it has, if you can see, it still has very pale pink, more of the cream, and it introduces orange, which sort of ties to some orange in here, and still has the gray and a little bit of hints of sort of bluey purple. And then the last color, this is so hard to show here, the last color, or the 4th color that I'm on, I transitioned in here, is called Eventide, and it still has pinks in it, and it still has the cream base, more of the gray and brown, and it's more blue and purple. So I am about 3/4 of the way through the body. I've also done some work on the sleeves. You hold back some of each color to transition the sleeves in the same kind of way, and I wanted to see how much mileage I got. It's pooling a little more interestingly on the sleeves because it's a smaller diameter, but I wanted to sort of see how much mileage I got out of yardage on the sleeves. So I had about 10 to 15 grams, about 15 grams probably of each color as I was going down the sleeves, and I want to see how far that got me in terms of figuring out how much I was going to need to, how long the sleeves could be and how much yarn I was going to need and stuff. So That's about the size of the ball of each color that I've kept back for the sleeve. So that's that third color. I'm about that far into this fourth color. I probably will save back a bit more of this fourth color for the sleeves than I did for the others, because as you can see, I haven't got very far down in the sleeve, and I'm on this side, I've got only that much left of that third color on this side. So as with what I have left over from the sleeves that I'm using on the sleeves, I'm weighing it and dividing it equally into 2 balls so that I have the same amount for each sleeve. The last color that I'll be putting in is called Apple Cart. And as you can see, it still has the pale cream base. It still has a little bit of the sort of pinks in it. There's actually even little spots of sort of that same hot pink that's in the top, but it's got much more of the blues and purples, and it also has a bit of the sort of orangey golds and stuff. So this that I'm working on here will transition to this. You can see there are very similar sort of tones in that. And I'm really loving it. It's, you know, it is predominantly stockinette in the round, but I don't mind that. I just sort of park myself in front of the TV and knit, knit, knit. And I would think I am about 4, maybe 3 inches from the bottom, from where I want to put in the ribbing. I've slipped it onto longer cables occasionally and try it on, and it fits very nicely. I did make a slightly larger size for myself. I do prefer sweaters with a bit more positive ease, so this is a little bit loose fitting, and that's the way I like it. Then this pattern has a lovely touch to it, which has these sort of sleeve caps that are, all the rest of the body is in stockinette, but these little sort of sleeve caps, which end there, where you actually divide for the sleeves, are in garter stitch. So that's a really nice little touch to it. And it's just turning out really nice. It's going to be a lovely, lovely garment to wear. I think I'm really, really enjoying it. I'm already thinking how fun it would be to do another one with some more colors of single skeins. I have so many single skeins of fingering weight, so I love the faded technique for the ability to use that for sweaters. So that's what's been getting the majority of my time. I feel like probably about another week and a half and I will be done that, which is really exciting. Not that I will be able to wear it really for a while, and with the warmer weather, although you never know. Here in Alberta it can be beautiful and warm one week, and speaking of warm, I always sort of start to sweat a little bit on my upper lip. It's charming. Anyway, this is living in this lovely fat squirrel fibers bag that my friend Pat picked up for me last summer at the at SSK, the Super Summer Knit Together, run by oh my goodness, I can't remember, Laura and Leslie of the, I can't remember the name of their podcast. Good grief, I can't believe I can't remember that. Of the Knit Girls. And she picked this beautiful bag up for me. It's a very large sweater size bag. It comfortably holds all my skeins and my project and stuff. And the other things that have got a little bit of work, yesterday I cast on my July socks. This, see if I can pull up this picture for you to show you. This is a second pair I've started of Cookie A socks. We have a cal going on in our group, scheduled at the moment to go till the end of July, although if there are people that are interested who haven't cast on yet and would like to knit along, I would certainly consider lengthening the end date of that cal, maybe into August. So do let me know if you have. Basically, it's to knit any pattern, any sock pattern by the designer Cookie A. There are many, many of them on Ravelry. You can find them by searching in the patterns, on the patterns tab under Cookie A. And we have a chatter thread and a finished object thread now in the Ravelry group. And as I said, if you haven't cast on a pair yet and you would like to and think maybe you won't be able to finish them quite as soon as the end of July, do let me know and I will consider, there are a few requests for that, I will consider running the cal a little longer. So I cast on, I have one pair on the go, although they haven't actually seen any work in a couple of weeks. But I did cast on a second pair that are also my July socks for Box of Socks and the Grocery Girls monthly sock knit along. So I've got this much of the start of a pattern called Pointinelle by Cookie A. This is out of Fawn and the Fawn and the Fox Badger base, which is her BFL nylon base, which I am absolutely in love with. I've talked about many times before on the podcast, and knit several pairs of socks out of it already, and I have several more colorways in my stash. But it's a lovely yarn for patterned socks because it has really good stitch definition. You can see this is a bit variegated, a bit more variegated than you might think of to use for a pattern, but I feel like it's going to show up the pattern well enough. This is what the pattern will look like. Really pretty with sort of lace, and then there are those sort of ribbed sections that swirl around the foot. It's a fun and lovely pattern to knit. The only criticism I have, and it's not really a criticism, but the only challenge I'm finding in knitting this pattern is that it's charted, and a lot of Cookie A patterns are charted, and you do kind of need to be able to follow charts to do her stuff. But it's great for learning how to follow charts. They're really well written patterns, super well laid out. This chart, sometimes charts show a repeat of a lace pattern, so it'll be these 8 stitches, and then you repeat those 8 stitches and whatever. This is essentially a chart that lays out all the stitches in one long line for the whole sock. This is 70 stitches as the size that I'm doing, which is a bit more than I would probably normally do for socks, but I feel like because of the swirling pattern on this, that there were only 2 sizes, and one was 60 stitches and one was 70, and I felt like 60 would be probably too tight for me. So hopefully this is going to fit well. And I feel like this yarn actually will do a decent job. As I was saying, so you have to follow the chart for all 70 stitches all the way around, and I find that a little harder, but it's still a pretty easy and enjoyable pattern to knit. I've only had to knit back once so far, which is pretty good for me. So I'm just beginning the part where you can see these sort of eyelet ribbed sections start to twist around. And I'm really, this is what I did yesterday, July 1st, for my cast on. So those I've worked on a little bit. I have done a few rows on a couple of other a pair of vanilla socks I'm working on. I've had a few rows, but nothing worth showing you. I did put a little bit, the other thing is I did put a little bit on my knee sock, my second knee sock. Not a ton, but more than, I think I just had a few rows of cuff when I showed you 3 weeks ago. So, sorry, that's my coffee machine telling me it's turning itself off. But so I've got that much. This is the back of the leg for the second knee sock. It's got the same little cable pattern as the first sock, which I showed last week, has this cable that runs all the way up the back of it. I've reversed the direction of the cable. It's just a very simple 2x2 cross cable, and it crosses the same way all the way up. But I've reversed the direction of it on the second sock. So yeah, those got a little bit of work, mostly while I was waiting at a doctor's appointment a week and a half ago. That's all the knitting I have been doing, actually. As I said, almost all of my knitting has been on that sweater. But I have started, and I have done a bit of spinning. Tour de Fleece actually started yesterday. I talked a little bit about that in my last episode as well. Tour de Fleece is about a month-long spin-along that happens at the same time as the Tour de France bike race. And a lot of different Ravelry groups host spin-alongs in it. Most of them, some of them are very goal-oriented, but a lot of them are just, do whatever project you want and spin kind of every day. And that's what I'm trying to do, is spend a little time every day. And I did a little bit from what I showed you last week, but not much. Not enough, I felt like, to be worth showing you, but I should have some pretty good progress by the next time I record. So hopefully we'll have something good to show you. And spinning, I don't own a spinning wheel, so all my spinning is done on spindles. And the other thing that I've been working on, which is quite exciting, is some sewing. So I've talked a little bit in previous episodes again about that I picked up some fabric and some patterns over the last little while, wanting to do a little bit of garment sewing. This is something that's really quite new to me. I'm a real newbie. I'm really learning. I sew project bags, and I learned a fair amount about some of the simple crafts of practices, I guess you'd say, of sewing on that, and I've perfected kind of a pattern for myself that way. But I haven't sewn a garment at all, or really used the sewing machine in that kind of way since I was in high school, I think. And so this is very new to me. I got a sewing machine as a gift 2 years ago at Christmas, 3 years ago. And it's just a little Singer machine. I've been thinking I may have to graduate up to a slightly more sophisticated machine that probably costs a little more money, but has a few more bells and whistles, and is a little more user-friendly than this one. Although it's serving me fine so far. So the pattern that I've started with, I found this website that I talked about before called 100 Acts of Sewing, and this is pattern dress number 1. It's just a very simple, as you can see, sleeveless dress with pockets, and her pattern is really well laid out. There's a booklet with it that really is helpful with explanations, has a few links to YouTube, and I've looked on YouTube on some other, I found some other links as well to help me with figuring out a few of the simple techniques in it. So I started on a dress, and this is it. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. I really love this fabric. It's a very lightweight cotton. Last night, I stayed up way too late last night because I was working on this, and it teaches, the pattern teaches you how to make your own bias tape, and you put bias tape on the inside. And I think I made a error in judgment on the bias tape. It suggests you can use either the same fabric or contrasting fabric. I went for contrasting fabric, but this is a very lightweight fabric, and this is a much heavier fabric. And as I pinned the bias tape on, it's wanting to, even if I can tell because it's pinned at the moment, that even when I stitch it down at the bottom, it's wanting to roll outwards. And I think it's going to just roll outwards like that even when I'm wearing it. And I don't really want that. You can see how it's doing that. So I am today going to remove this bias tape, and I'm going to make some out of this same fabric that I have about almost a meter still left of this fabric, which is great enough for the pockets and definitely enough for bias tape. I'm going to do some bias tape out of this fabric, which is lighter weight. I'm also going to make it thinner than this. I think this was a bit too thick. I have a bias tape maker. The pattern actually calls for I think a 3/4 inch, and I have a 1/2 inch and an inch. I don't have the 3/4 inch, so I'm going to go down to the 1/2 inch, and so I'm going to rip all that bias tape on the neckline off and just start again. But that's okay. As I said, this is super new to me, so I'm really just learning, and this is kind of going to be my first learning garment. I did do French seams inside, which I'm pleased with. Yeah, I'm just gonna, this is gonna be what it will be. It may end up being just sort of a light summer house dress, depending on how it turns out, but I learned lots from it, and I have some other fabrics. I will probably do this same pattern again a couple of times and see if I can progress in it. So that's what that's the other thing I've been working on. And as I said, I stayed up way too late last night working on that dress, and I suspect I will do the same again today. But that's what long weekends are for, right? What else do I wanted to show you one little acquisition I have, which I got actually just before the last episode, but forgot to show you. You've probably seen this all over the internet, other podcasts, but Pom Pom Quarterly's anniversary issue. This is the first time I've actually picked up a copy of Pom Pom Quarterly, and this is a really lovely issue. So if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend it. It's got over a dozen patterns, and I haven't counted them, but over a dozen really nice patterns in here. As I said, I know a lot of podcasters have shown this and talked through it, so I'm not going to go into any huge detail about it, but there are a couple of things that I'm particularly interested in making. I really love this sweater, which is called the Kaylee. If you were wondering if you've seen that, that's how that's spelled. It's Irish word, and it's pronounced Kaylee. And that's the sweater. There's a couple of other detail pictures. It's a worsted weight, relaxed fit, lovely kind of pullover. I really like that. So I think I might even splurge and get some Brooklyn tweed, although I might have yarn in my stash to do this without purchasing anything, so we'll see. But I think that's really cute. I do also really like the soiree sweater, which I know a couple of other podcasters have shown off and are working on. That's this one here. It's really cute. It's done with fingering weight, I think, and mohair, a lace mohair maybe, held together. It's really beautiful. I'm not 100% sure whether I will do that or not. It is a sort of a crop sweater, which is not, as you can see better in that picture, which is not the best length for me. I would probably need to lengthen it a little bit, but as I said, I really do like that Kaylee sweater. The other thing that I've been looking at in here is, I should have taken the time to mark these patterns first, and I didn't. Can't find it now. Well, I do like these knees up socks, which are very clever. It's a regular fingering weight sock in the boot. You can't really see it in this picture, but then it switches to a DK and a slouchy sock on the top, so it fits nicely into your boot, and then it has this sort of leg warmery slouchy effect above the boot. And I do have a pair of little ankle boots not dissimilar to this, and I thought those would be really cute, so I might make those as well. Yeah, that's so that's Pom Pom Quarterly, their 5th anniversary edition. I picked this up from Stash, which is one of my local yarn shops here. If you are in the Calgary region and you don't know yet, it's very exciting news that Stash is moving to a new location this summer, just down the block from where they were, and it's a bigger store, and they're going to have a grand opening, and I think that will mean that they will be expanded in what yarns they carry, and they already carry a great selection and some really fun indie dyes and stuff, and I'm really looking forward to their expansion and their new location. And so if you're in the Calgary area, keep your eyes out for that. Let's see, I feel like I have actually covered everything. Well, this is only a 30-minute episode. This is what happens when you are a monogamous knitter and just don't have 40 million whips to talk about. As I said, please do consider coming along and joining our Cal. It would be great fun, and I showed off a prize last week, and I will probably have a second prize for that. Again, I'm sort of waiting to see how many finished objects we get, but if we get a decent amount, then I will throw in a second prize for that. I was going to mention a new podcast that I've been watching, that I started watching while I was working on my sweater the last couple of days. New to me. She's been around for about a year, I think. It's called Ninja Chickens with Maria. I'm really enjoying watching her podcast. She lives in North Carolina, and she homesteader, sort of homeschooler. She has a large house that they built themselves, and she does some really interesting natural dyeing with plants, where she does puts the leaves and stuff right onto the fabric and onto the sock blanks and stuff, and dyes them in a way that leaves impression of the leaves on the sock blanks and on the fabrics, which is super cool. And she talks very knowledgeably about a lot of those things. About she was an herbalist, I think, for a while, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying and she's very personable and very charming, and she's a lovely color work knitter, which is not a strong suit for me, so I'm always interested in hearing people talk about color work, and it sort of constantly challenges me to dive into that in a little more detail, or a little more intensively at some point. So I have some yarn quantities in my stash for colorwork sweaters, so I do want to get onto that at some point. Anyway, I think that actually that really is everything I wanted to cover today. So again, thanks for coming to check me out. I don't often mention, but I am, if you want to follow me around, I am Auntie Joe12, all one word, on Instagram, and just Auntie Joe on Ravelry, and would be happy to have you come and follow me there, and I'll check you out as well. And I hope I will record again in, probably it'll be 2 weeks again. 2 weeks seems to work a little better for me in terms of having real progress on things to show you. I hope I will have a finished sweater in 2 weeks of when I record next. So until that time, happy knitting, and I look forward to talking to you all soon.